The show is found under LGA Broadcasting Network. UFO Talk Radio can, but does not necessarily promote any particular lifestyle, belief, religion, political affiliation, or other personal practice. These shows are for entertainment purposes only, and they are not intended to treat or diagnose and/or claim to cure any disease or condition, or give any medical or legal advice. All music is purchased and owned by LGA Broadcasting.
I got the windows rolled down, got the radio up, and I'm heading out of Vegas tonight. And it's 1:30 on a 4-day run, and the desert is a welcome sight.
You're listening to Glenn Leary on UFO Talk Radio from the LGA Broadcasting Networks.
From the high desert. It's now time for the Glenn Leary Show on UFOTalkRadio.com.
Now, back with Glenn Leary on UFO Talk Radio, deep in the desert of Nevada.
And we are back, everybody. That's another Tuesday night. I am Glenn Leary to everybody, and I want you to realize tonight's show is going to be so cool. I'm telling you, we have Mark Anthony. And boy, I'll tell you, he has a lot to say about the psychic world. They call him a psychic lawyer and an explorer about psychic. Quite fascinating. He's got many, many books out. And gosh, he's been on a lot of TV shows and radio shows. Some of the biggies. That's right. So now, with no further ado, Mark, you with me?
Glenn, thanks for having me on the show. I've been looking forward to this.
Well, I'll tell you, me too, my friend. Oh, my gosh. This is one of my favorite things to talk about. I do live in a kind of a ghost town type of thing. The Pioneer Saloon, actually, is very haunted. I don't know if you've ever heard of them. And, yes, and I've talked to so many people about the psychic world, but you have a different twist to all this. You seem to know a lot more than some of these other folks. And I find your books fascinating. How did you get started, and why do they call you the psychic lawyer?
Well, I got started because I was born into a family of psychic mediums. Both my mother and father had these abilities. And the thing is, Glenn, I tracked it back to 4 generations, back into the 1890s on both sides of the family. And so I'm assuming it goes even further back than that. But I was able to verify people who were able to communicate with spirits and foretell future events. And the thing is, though, I'm the first person to go public with it. You know, my dad was a Navy SEAL and a NASA engineer. My mother was a commercial illustrator and in fashion design. So it's not like, you know, they're running around with turbans, you know, throwing Ouija boards at people. I mean, we were an all-American family next door.
Right.
And, yeah, and so, and I, you know, because of my dad being so science-oriented, I always grew up with a very favorable view of science. And, you know, when I was like 8 years old, Glenn, I remember looking at the stars with my dad. And he always spent a lot of time with me. And you know, he liked talking to me, and I always liked asking questions. And he said, Mark, there's an explanation for everything. If you spend enough money on research and development, and you put enough focus and discipline into it, you'll come up with an answer to explain everything. And ultimately, it will be explainable through science. And that really stuck with me. So that's been with me for my whole life. So that's why I take an evidential and a scientific approach to studying spirit communication. My mother was a very spiritual person. She was raised in the Catholic faith, as I was. My dad was Baptist. And she looked at these abilities as a gift from God. And so when I was about 3.5 years old, I started seeing my invisible friends, which
Whoa.
is not an unusual, yeah, and that's not unusual for a little kid to make up friends and things like that, except when mommy and daddy can see who I'm talking to. I remember the reaction. Mom was like, "Oh, he's got it," and Dad's reaction was, "Oh, he's got it." So they had two very, very different reactions to me being able to see spirits. And in all my books, my first book, Never Letting Go, my second book, Evidence of Eternity, and my latest book, The Afterlife Frequency,
That's good.
which just won the gold. It won the first place gold winner cover visionary award. So I'm very happy for the major success that the Afterlife Frequency has had on so many different levels, and it just recently won an award. So in all my books, I talk about my life and growing up and the things that had happened. So to jump to the second part of your question, how did I become known as the psychic lawyer? Well, I decided at one point to go more public with my abilities, and that was in the wake of my mother's passing back in 2006. And I was actually in New York City at a media conference, and a couple reporters saw that not only was I a psychic medium, meaning I can communicate with spirits of people who passed, but that I was an attorney. And I remember they go, "You're a medium and attorney? Okay, you're now the psychic lawyer." And so they nicknamed me the psychic lawyer, and it stuck. and I remember saying, well, I at first I didn't know if that's what I wanted to be called, and then my agent said, "Mark, this is going to get you on TV, because
Right.
It's not like there's any psychic lawyers." And so here we are, Glenn. And I'm giving you the whiz bang boom version because there's so much more to everything that's happened.
Well, you've sure come a long ways. I mean, gosh. And your books are fascinating. The frequency thing. Now, can you go into that a little bit?
Well, my book, The Afterlife Frequency, let me back up just a bit.
Maybe I'm skipping
My
ahead.
first book, Never Letting Go, I wrote it because it helps people get through the grieving process. It's when you're in that stunned phase and you're just sort of stumbling through the nightmare in the aftermath of grief. And Never Letting Go was extremely well received and has been recommended by hospices and grief counselors all over the world. And then when I was on the Never Letting Go promotion tour, people began asking me very poignant questions about reincarnation and do animals have souls, and is there a hell, and is there a heaven, is there a God, is there a scientific basis for this? And so I compiled those questions, and then I wrote my second book, Evidence of Eternity. And then Evidence of Eternity turned out to be even a bigger hit than Never Letting Go. And then since I wrote Evidence of Eternity, people began to ask even more in-depth questions. And then I've been invited to be the keynote speaker at several organizations that take afterlife research extremely seriously, such as the International Association for Near-Death Studies, the Sedona Spirit Symposium, the Vail Symposium, the Afterlife Research Education Institute, Edgar Cayce Association for Research and Enlightenment, just, to name a few. Plus, I've spoken at Brown, Columbia, Harvard, Yale, and other universities as well. And that led me to write The Afterlife Frequency. The subtitle is The Scientific Proof of Spiritual Contact and How That Awareness Will Change Your Life. And there's several reasons why I wrote the book, but traditionally, Glenn, the different forms of spirit contact, whether it's a visitation, in other words, people that feel a deceased loved one is around them, or they have a dream that feels real, and they come out of it saying, "God, that was a real conversation I had with my father who died."
Right.
Or if you have contact through a medium, or what about a near-death experience? Or what we now refer to as shared death experiences, where people who are actively in the process of dying, individuals in close proximity, whether it's hospice, other healthcare workers or family and close friends, they will experience and even see what the dying person is encountering as they're transitioning from this world to the other side.
Amazing.
And so the different forms of spirit communication have traditionally, Glenn, been placed into separate categories. So I've spent a lifetime as a medium and doing research with quantum physics and also the structure of the human brain, through my law practice, because I specialized in head injury litigation. And I found that there is a common denominator for all of it, and that all these different forms of spirit communication are not a fluke, nor should they be treated separately, but they're explainable through quantum physics.
Amazing.
And that's why I wrote The Afterlife Frequency.
Gosh. I have seen my mother when she passed away. I was a young boy. And I have seen ghost spirits. I'm open to it for some reason. I'm sensitive. And I didn't believe it at first, but when I was younger, it came and happened. And I turned it off, or tried to turn it off. And then when I had open heart surgery, the faucet was turned on again. Crazy. Yeah. And a lot of people know that's fine with me. But they do pop in once in a while. And it's normally just in and out. Like, hey, I'm here. Everything's going to be okay, type of thing. And it can be scary.
But it shouldn't be.
No,
but it shouldn't be. And then that's the focus of my work, is to remove the fear and superstition surrounding spirit communication.
Right.
And the reason that it's scary, Glenn, and sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I'm so glad that you brought that up.
Yeah.
Because we fear the unknown. That's a primeval fear within humans. I mean, think about it. Children fear the dark.
I sure did.
Why? Because it's the unknown. And how do you overcome that fear? You put a nightlight on. You embrace the light. And with spirit communication, I saw this funny thing somebody posted on social media. It said that, when someone we love dies, we all want them to come back. And then when they do, there's the running and the screaming. and it was funny. It was like a little spoof on the zombie movie and all that. Yeah, but the truth is they do come back because we are not these bodies.
Mm-hmm.
We are in these bodies.
Mm-hmm.
Our brain did not create our consciousness, aka the soul, or our, aka our spirit.
Mm-hmm.
It merely hosts it the way a computer hard drive hosts the programs that are on it.
Oh.
And so when our brain/hard drive crashes, that information is not lost. It is merely uploaded to a higher frequency. Ergo, the title of my book, The Afterlife Frequency.
Wow. When spirits pass, people leave this side, go to the other side. What happens? I mean, I've heard different things. What do you see that happens, or no? I've been told, or
well, sure. Think of your soul, your spirit, as a drop of water, and when we die, that drop of water leaves the body and plunges into this eternal sea that I refer to as the collective consciousness. Now, Edgar Cayce, the great psychic who passed back in the 1940s, one of the most prominent psychics, referred to it as universal mind. Other people refer to this as cells in the body of God. Other people refer to this as heaven, the other side, the afterlife. And our soul, our spirit, becomes energetically linked with other spirits that are linked with other spirits that are linked with other spirits. And it's a higher vibrational frequency than this one. I explain this in great detail in the Afterlife Frequency, where I introduce my term, the electromagnetic soul. And people say, well, what does that mean? Well, our soul or consciousness, every great spiritual teacher, let's say since the sages of ancient India, through Zoroaster, through Moses, through Buddha, through Jesus,
Mhm.
through Muhammad, Confucius, Lao Tzu, Native American spirituality, the Pacific Islander religions. I mean, I've studied pretty much all of them. They all believe and teach that our soul, the who and what we are, pre-exists our body, comes into the body, and then moves on after the body dies. So now that we have the benefit of physics, the first law of thermodynamics teaches that energy is neither created nor destroyed, only transferred from one form to another. And now the field of neuroscience, which studies the human brain, has proven that not only does our body have an electrical field, but the most complex electrical field in the body is housed in the brain. And that's why it appears that the brain hosts this eternal soul, and that everything on the subatomic level, I mean, we all know that everything's made of molecules, which in turn are made of atoms, which in turn are composed of electrons, protons, and neutrons, which in turn are composed of the smallest unit, which is a quantum, ergo the term quantum physics.
Yes.
So everything, which is electromagnetic energy. So everything, Glenn, on the subatomic level, whether it's you and me or the radio waves that this show is being broadcast on, the surface of the moon, Mars, the distance between the stars, the grains of sand on the beach, everything on the subatomic level is electromagnetic energy, which is all interconnected. And so this is why I developed the term the electromagnetic soul, because it describes what we really are. Pure consciousness, a soul, awareness, a spirit, which is eternal electromagnetic energy. So that when we die, you know, that drop of water, which is our EMS, our electromagnetic soul, then leaves the lower, slower vibration that is the confines of the human body and transfers to a higher vibration. In other words, think of our world as AM radio, the afterlife as FM radio. So what we're doing is we're literally making a quantum leap out of AM and into FM.
Now, let me bring something up. I see these guys with these boxes, electrical boxes, and their radio frequencies and what have you, spirit boxes.
Yes.
How does that work? I mean, is that really happening? Or can
I tell you, I mean, I cannot, I mean, oh my God, Glenn, I can't even believe it. You asked that question because I have got, okay, my mind is just spinning. No, this is good. This is, and just bear with me if you will. The best friend I ever had that I met when I was 11 years old, Billy, went to junior high school together. We, after high school and we went to college together. Then I went to law school and he went to Asia. And he developed he was a linguistics genius. He was living in Tokyo and teaching English to Japanese executives, and he spoke Thai and Cantonese and Indonesian. Wow. And yeah, he was great. And I remember I took a month off and we traveled through Southeast Asia together. But even though we were both raised in the Catholic faith, he was an atheist. And I, of course, on the other side, if you will, am not. And our entire lives, we had this ongoing debate as to the existence of life after death. Now, obviously, I believe in it, and he said he didn't believe in it. He said, but he didn't understand how I could do this psychic thing. Because he was around me and my family, my mom. All my friends knew my mom was like, ooh, kind of cool. But everybody knew that, Mark's mom knows stuff, so be careful around her.
Right.
But I remember when we were in Asia, and he goes, the hard time I have is that there's no science or technology to back this up. And I said, well, it's just a matter of time. So we had this ongoing dispute and debate, but it wasn't an argument. It was an intellectual debate. Mm-hmm. And one of the greatest honors of my life, Glenn, is when he and his wife asked me to perform their wedding ceremony. At the time, I was a notary. I was practicing law, and I was a notary, and his wife was from Japan, and it was just one of the best days of my life because I remember I was standing there on on the on the little stage, and my best friend is standing in front of me. His beautiful bride is coming down the aisle, and it was overlooking the ocean in Florida. It was absolutely fantastic. And the thing is, Glenn, everybody in my life that I loved was there. All our friends from college, my parents, his parents. It
Oh,
was
nice.
just, yeah, if you could just pluck one beautiful memory in life, that was it. And a couple years after that, he died from suicide.
Mm.
And he had some issues going on, obviously, and he developed.
Oh, I lost you. Let's see if we can back. So we're going to try to call him back. How that happened, we don't know. Things do happen on radio. So let me grab his bio here. I do apologize, everybody. Okay. Maybe he'll call us back on this line. We'll see. I'll call him. Never know. Radio.
Hi, it's Mark.
We lost you.
Yeah.
We're back.
Well, you know what? This ties into where I'm going.
Yeah. Are they
spirits
playing with us?
Yes. Spirits are electromagnetic energy,
Yes.
electromagnetic soul, and they can affect electrical fields.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, guys,
So-
leave us on the air.
Yeah. Come on, Billy.
Yeah,
and
right.
everybody else. So he passed, and obviously I was devastated.
Of course.
And about a year and a half after that, Never Letting Go had come out, my first book, and I was on a speaking tour, and I was at the Stanley Hotel in Estes Park, Colorado. There was a big paranormal convention there, and I was one of the keynote speakers. And I just finished my presentation, so I'm in the convention hall.
Yeah.
All the vendors are set up, and so I'm signing books, and my manager Rocky, she's walking around looking at things, and all the paranormal investigators are there, and they're showing off K2 meters, infrared, and like you asked, the spirit box.
Right.
Okay, and so Rocky's walking by the spirit box that this guy named Chris is showing off, and all of a sudden a voice comes up and goes, "Get Mark," and Rocky stops and looks at it, and Chris is like, "Did that just talk to you?" And it says again, "Get Mark," and he goes, "Do you think he means you're Mark Anthony?" And all of a sudden I hear, "Mark, get over here," and I look up, and they're like waving at me, and I so I run over there, like, "What's going on?" And as I'm coming up to it, all of a sudden I hear, "Dude," and I stopped in my tracks. See, Billy and I grew up East Coast, Central Florida, part of the surfing culture, and he always called me dude. And then I'm stopping, and I look at Rocky, and tears are coming out of her eyes. She goes, "I know that voice." And before I could say anything else, I hear, "Love you, bro," come out of this spirit box, and then it went to static. And I start shaking. I go, "Oh my God." She goes, "Mark, that was Billy's voice." And I go, "It was." And then Chris is like, "This is really freaking weird." He goes, "Not only did it ask for Mark, you both positively identified the voice." And
My gosh.
so then it hit me. What did he tell me those years before? There's no science, there's no technology to prove this. And what did he choose to come through to me was science.
Yes.
A piece of equipment and electronics designed specifically to scan the electromagnetic spectrum looking for spirit voices. And then I was like, "So, Billy."
Yes.
And that is what got me on the path to write the Afterlife Frequency.
Well, there you
Because
go.
I realized everything in my life had led up to this point. Dad teaching me that no matter what it is, it can be explained through science, all of my background in anatomy and physiology and physics, and of course being a psychic medium. And the funny thing about that incident, I'm the psychic medium. I'm the one that's usually delivering messages or things to people where they're like, oh my gosh, and now it was happening to me in the most unexpected manner, yet the way that only Billy could have done. And so, to answer your question directly, and thank you for indulging me on that story, is that things like the spirit box, things like K2 meters, the EMF scanners, and all those, I believe that, yes, these things are legit, but I also think that they're the rudimentary technology for spirit communication. The first person to attempt to create a device to communicate with spirits was Thomas Edison. And back in the 1920s, he was working on what he called the spirit phone. And unfortunately, Edison died before he could finish work on it. Well, currently at the University of Arizona, Dr. Gary Schwartz and his team of electrical engineers and physicists are developing the Soul Phone project. And Dr. Schwartz, he wrote the foreword for the Afterlife Frequency, my book, and he's also a friend and colleague. And I'm on the board of directors of the Soul Phone project. And I've been in Dr. Schwartz's lab, and I've seen what he's working on. Unfortunately, I'm not able to. I had to sign an NDA, so I can't discuss the details of it.
God, I can't wait till it's out.
Let me tell you something, Glenn. It's coming.
Oh my God!
And I got mixed feelings. It may put me out of business, but in the bigger human sense, I mean, the idea that we may, within our lifetimes, have a device that can tune into spirits is life changing. This is world changing. So we live in a fascinating era of technology. The downside, of course, is we also live in an era where we have the technology to completely destroy life on this planet.
Yes.
And I'm hoping that it doesn't go that direction.
Me too. Another question I have for you. Do they want to come back to talk to us? Are they just come in when they're supposed to? Or is it their timing? Or can you ask for them really to come and be there? If you know where I'm coming with that.
No, yeah. Well, the way it works is I describe this in terms of frequency beacons. And you see, spirits can move at the speed of light. So in the time that it took me just to say that sentence, a spirit of a loved one could have been go from you to me to the moon and back probably about 4 or 5 times. I mean, that's how quickly that they move. And if you start, and also the other side, the afterlife frequency, is in a dimension that runs parallel to this one. So it's not some distant thing in a nebula, 400 million light years away. It is in a dimension that runs parallel to this one. And that may sound like some airy-fairy, metaphysical New Age stuff, but for the fact that multiverse theory, string theory, and this was first thought of and developed by Albert Einstein, and now it's Dr. Michio Kaku and other very distinguished physicists, including Stephen Hawking, believe that this is the reality, is that there's not just a universe, but there are multiverses, and they're many times dealing with frequency. So for a spirit to come from the afterlife frequency here is just a frequency adjustment. In other words, it's a quantum leap.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're thinking very heavily about someone who died and you're grieving them, your brain operates on electromagnetic energy. So what's happening is you are emitting an electromagnetic pulse. Spirits pick up on that, and they're drawn to you. Conversely, they can send an emission to you. So, for example, have you ever been thinking about someone that you really loved a whole lot that has passed, and turned on the radio, and there's that song?
Yes. Yes.
We all have. Do you think that's a coincidence?
Well, I think that is a message. I really do.
Exactly. Spirits, electromagnetic energy, radio waves, electromagnetic energy. Your brain waves and your brain operate on electromagnetic energy.
Mm-hmm.
So they're sending you this thought. Turn on the radio, and there's that song that makes you think of him or her. And this is what I term spiritual synchronicity. Spirits are not here to control us or scare us or frighten us, but they can direct us and guide us. And it's always for something positive: love, healing, resolution. It's never about anger, bigotry, hatred, violence, or destruction. That's the human ego. People do that themselves. Spirits don't. Messages from spirits, messages from the divine power that we call God, are all about love, healing, resolution, protection. And so that's the difference. And that's how you can tell that, gee, is this, a spiritual message, or is this something that I'm thinking of? Because we live in an era now where there's, a lot of very insane things happening in our world. People claim that, oh, God wants me to put on this bomb vest and blow up a bunch of people.
Oh, yeah,
no, God doesn't do that.
No.
The human ego does that.
Mark, let's just go to a break, okay? And we'll be right back. We'll be back with Mark Anthony, everybody. A fascinating show.
Violence, theft, drugs, graffiti. It's all part of joining a gang. In times like these, we need to protect our children and our community from gangs. Gangs often prey on unsupervised teens with low self-esteem, who perform poorly in school, who seek a sense of belonging, or are simply bored. Joining a gang often involves violent hazing rituals. Once in a gang, members can become alienated from their families, school, and friends. Drugs, guns, and malicious activity are common elements in gangs. Trying to leave a gang can be a difficult and dangerous process. The best way to get out of a gang is never to join one. Protect kids from being recruited by a gang. Know who they're hanging out with. Involve kids in after-school activities and provide positive role models. Help reduce gang activities in your community by working with local law enforcement and school systems. Don't let a kid you know get involved with gangs. Visit ncpc.org to learn more or contact your local law enforcement agency.
A message from the U.S. Department of Justice, National Crime Prevention Council, and the Ad Council.
You're listening to Glenn Larry on UFO Talk Radio from the LGA Broadcasting Networks.
And we're back. I'd like to say a couple things out to some folks out, do some waving out there to the Pioneer Saloon. Gosh, I go down and meet people there all the time. And the old man liver is incredible stuff. I had that on my hamburger the other day. I had a great time. All the people down there are so friendly, and they've got a lot going on this year for the summer. Check that out. Please do. And I want to say hello to American Legion. It's Rising Sun, Maryland over there. I think it's post 194. We give you a wave out there. And of course, to all the truck drivers out there, 73s to you, and to KBHR and 73s to you guys out there too. Clark County All Fire EMS, and also over there in Avondale, yes, Station 23. Chief Hall, we say hello to you guys out there also. I'm back with recapping with Mark Anthony, a well-known psychic and medium and lawyer, psychic lawyer, and has a couple of books out. I have him on the air. We're having a great conversation, and I do have another question for you, Mark, and welcome back, by the way.
Thank you.
What happens? I mean, when you first pass over, I mean, is there a life review? As I say, there is. I don't know. Are they too busy to come back and see you? Oh, boo-hoo-hoo, Bobby died. Okay, Bobby's busy getting prepared to be on the other side. I hear all sorts of this type of thing going on. What is true about that? Is there any truth or anything about that? Kind of goes with your thoughts.
Well, I'm also a near-death experience researcher. And what we have noticed over the last 5 decades of near-death experience research is that there does appear to be a life review. And so when somebody dies, we've all heard that old saying, my life flashed before my eyes.
Right.
And it's true. It's as if it's not as if your soul, your consciousness, who and what you are, reviews your life while you're in the process of transitioning. And what we're seeing in near-death experiences is that when somebody dies and your soul separates from your body, there seems to be like a couple stages, and it moves pretty quickly, like, once again at the speed of light. So you leave your body, you will oftentimes feel the sensation of going through a tunnel into a light, and you'll be greeted by people connected to you that are already on the other side. Now, let's say that you're a child and you didn't know anybody who had died. The people greeting you could be grandparents, great-grandparents, other relatives, things like, people related to you in that respect. Beloved pets can be there because animals have souls.
Mm-hmm.
And then the stage after that is going even deeper into the light. And so think of like a near-death experience is your electromagnetic soul's on a rubber band. It's like, you go from our world and you touch the afterlife frequency, and then you come back. And that's why people are able to discuss what they have experienced. Now, what I do as a medium is I'm talking to the people that didn't have the rubber band, and they went through those stages into the light.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is a basic understanding of what happens. Now, what's really fascinating, Glenn, about near-death experience research is that it's consistent worldwide. My friend and colleague, Dr. Jeffrey Long, is the head of the Near-Death Experience Research Foundation, which is the world's largest database of near-death experience accounts. And there's like 10 parallels to them, and what I just described is part of them. And the reports are not just coming out of the United States and Europe, but they're also coming out of all the continents, including countries like Iran, very conservative Muslim countries, coming out of China, an atheist-type country, Russia, and countries that don't necessarily embrace beliefs about the afterlife or in the Western sense. And in fact, the vast majority of people who have a near-death experience, what they encounter transcends as far beyond traditional religions. I mean, some people come back and say, oh, it's just like the Book of Corinthians said, or it's just like the Quran said, or whatever. But there's reasons why we believe that happens, too, because they're going from your electromagnetic soul is transitioning from a finite perspective. In other words, when you're a human, everything we're capable of perceiving is in the finite, limited sense. And so our perceptions are shaped by our cultural references, which includes religion. But as you transition deeper into the light, you realize that even the word God is too limiting, that the unconditional love, the boundless joy, the immense energy is so far beyond anything that we can experience in our finite form.
Wow.
So I know I'm getting quite ahead of ourselves here, but that is what we are seeing in this research that's being conducted globally now.
Okay, are they anxious to talk to us?
Oh yeah, they like talking to us. Spirits are pure energy. Energy doesn't get old, sick, tired, or die. We're the ones that are miserable.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
Because in our world, we believe in linear time.
Yeah.
We're born, we grow old, we die,
Mm-hmm.
and we move in one direction. And sadly for parents who've lost children, their child doesn't get to go through the aging process. So we tend to think of life moving in time moving in one direction.
Now,
I'm sorry?
With that, when a child dies, do they remain the same age? They say that we get younger, or we appear younger, I guess. Anything to that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I've done readings for probably about 15,000 people, and in each reading, at least half a dozen spirits come through. I estimated I've communicated with about 250,000 spirits in my life. And what happens is spirits are immortal living beings. So let's say a baby died in utero or under the age of 1. They don't come through goo goo gaga. They're an immortal living being, and they're perfectly capable of communicating with us. And they will bring forth information that's just astounding. also, many times, let's say somebody, like you had a grandparent that died when they were 95 years old, and they come through and they look like they did when they were 20 or 22 years old. And I've noticed this in many readings when I'm doing a session for somebody and an elderly parent or friend or spouse comes through, they will initially appear the way they did prior to passing. Why? Because that's an identifier. Because if your 95-year-old grandmother comes through looking 20 years old and hot and sexy and all that, you're going to be like, who are you? You know?
Right.
But say, oh, that's grandma. But then they will morph into this younger version of themselves.
Wow.
And the reason that they do that is because their energy. And they're demonstrating that energy doesn't get old, sick, tired, or die. And so that's why in a lot of near-death experiences, people will say that, okay, so I went through this tunnel, and then there's all these people that I knew, but they all look like they're about 25 or 30 or so, but I knew who they were. And that's because you're encountering them in a purely energetic state.
Wow. That answers that. Huh. I'll be darned.
Well, you know what's funny is about 3 or 4 months after my mother passed, I had a dream, but it wasn't a dream, it was a visitation. And all of a sudden I was in this white room. Everything in it was white, and there's these giant windows, and Mom was seated in the corner, and she was wearing this blue and white dress, and it was really cool. It kind of looked like an impressionist painting, the type of dress that she was wearing. And I went and sat down at the table, and I said, Mom, you look so young. Why? And she said, because I can. And I started laughing in this encounter, and she did too. And it dawned on me, well, duh, who wouldn't? I mean, if all of a sudden we could all morph into 22 years old, perfect V-shaped body with six-pack, I mean, you know, well, wouldn't we?
Yes.
And the thing is, that's energy. Energy is pure. It's perfect.
So they can create anything they want then. They could appear with a suit, a tux, or, you know, when a guy dies naked in the bed, he's not going to appear naked to you. He's going to have something on. Right?
Well,
I don't know.
it depends on the spirit contact. I mean, sometimes people come through with some really interesting articles of clothing, and I'll say, well, they're dressed like this. And some, like one time, in fact, I was on a TV show, and it's on my YouTube channel. I was doing a reading for this woman in the audience, and I go, what's with all the bunnies? And the woman started giggling. She goes, he gave me a bunny outfit. And I'm like, I didn't even want to touch that one. You know?
That's good. That's great. Oh, my gosh. Well, Mark, I'm going to go to open lines and see if we get anybody out there has the courage to call in. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I get hit with calls. But let's just get that out there for people here.
To talk with Glenn Larry, deep in the desert of Nevada. Lines are open at 1-702-874-1114. That's 702-874-1114. Now, here again, Glenn Larry. Pahrump lines are open at 775-990-8275. That's 775-990-8275. Pahrump lines are open at 775-990-8275. That's 775-990-8275. Pahrump lines are open at 775.
To call UFO Talk Radio, the Glenn Larry Show, deep in the dark desert of Nevada, call 702-874-1114. North of the Rockies, call 702-874-1114. West of the Rockies, call 702-874-1114. And south of the Rockies, call 702-874-1114. And east of the Rockies, call 702-874-1114. First-time callers, call 702-874-1114. And if you just want to talk to the Glenn Larry Show, call 702-874-1114.
He is back. Now, on UFO Talk Radio, Glenn Larry.
And we're with Mark Anthony, the well-known, renowned psychic lawyer, medium, has several books out. And gosh, I'm so glad to have him on the line. And the lines are open, by the way. If you have a question for him, go ahead and give us a call. Don't be afraid. And this is one of our favorite things to talk about, of course, the psychic world, and how close it is to ours in many ways. Well, I've learned some stuff tonight. I hope that you have too. Mark, you back with us?
I am.
Good deal. Now, all right. For instance, I had a dear friend named Paul that passed away recently. Choked on some food and died in his chair, and which is, an untimely death, I guess. I mean, is that your exit point? They call it, how you're going to leave, how you're going to die. You die in your sleep. You have a heart attack. I mean, is any truth to that at all? Is it planned out?
I believe that there's a day we're coming in and a day we're going out. And if Paul hadn't died from basically a form of asphyxiation, which was the choking, I mean, maybe he would have had a heart attack. Maybe he would have even been struck by lightning. And I know that annoys a lot of people when they hear that, but that is a consistent theme that spirits transmit, that the day that we die is the day that we're supposed to die. And it's particularly difficult when in dealing with people who've lost a child. I know I've mentioned this a number of times. I'm going to be the keynote speaker at Helping Parents Heal annual convention in Phoenix in August.
How great is that?
And
that's great.
Yeah, I love working with that organization. It's such a beautiful organization because that's exactly what they do.
Yeah.
Is they help parents heal, because there's no more devastating, crushing loss than losing a child, because it turns our world upside down. Parents we're supposed to go first, not our kids. But unfortunately, is that happens. And, a lot of parents, they get angry when they hear that, but then other parents, in time, they begin to understand, because oftentimes when something devastating like that happens, when one door closes, another opens, and it puts people on a new spiritual path. And I'm not saying that makes them happy and it's wonderful, but it is how we react to the death. The thing is, Glenn, there's nothing we can do about the death of a loved one. But what we can do is control how we react to it. And I'm a criminal offense attorney, or I was until I've gone over to this full time. And before that, I was a prosecutor. And I, in Evidence of Eternity, I write about grief, crime, grief syndrome. And what I've seen is that a lot of people, teens, children, the young adults, if there's an unresolved grief issue, because not everybody comes from a family where you'll discuss the grief or go to counseling. People ignore it and think, oh, well, he's just a child, it won't bother him, but it does. And that grief can lead to rage, acting out, all sorts of criminal behaviors, alcoholism. So let's say a child who never had a family that helped him or her deal with the death of a loved one, they start to drink heavily, and then they cause an accident, kill somebody. So the grief leads to crime, which leads to grief, inflicting grief on other people. And it's very important to deal with our grief issues through therapy, through group discussions, support groups. Many people turn to spirit communication as an important therapeutic step in the journey through grief. In fact, this week I've got 2 online spirit communication events, Friday the 24th and then Saturday the 25th. Saturday the 25th is a light circle. It's limited to 7 people, and I'm not sure if it's sold out yet because East West Seattle is sponsoring the event. And if people want to find out more about those events, please visit my website, which is afterlifefrequency.com. But I do know that there's spaces available for the Friday night event, which is 5:30 Pacific, 8:30 Eastern, because that's a group, a gallery event. So I'll be able to connect several people to their loved ones in spirit. But please visit my website, afterlifefrequency.com. And I'm inviting everybody also to sign up for my newsletter to keep me up to date when I'll be on shows like this one.
Yes, by all means.
Yeah, like other shows and
That's
other
right.
spirit communication events coming up, because I've got several speaking events between now and the end of the year.
Great. Okay, with that, kind of almost forgot my question here. Yes, okay. So letting go, I guess, is important to let them pass through what they got to do, correct? Along that grieving time you go through.
Well,
I don't know.
You know, the reason my first book is called Never Letting Go is what we need to let go of is the grief and the pain associated with the death, but never let go of the love for the one who passed.
Right.
Let's face it, you're not going to anyway.
Yeah, true.
You know, my mother passed in 2006, and I love her very as much today as I did then. You know, my father passed 5 years ago. I've had so many friends pass, and so many people that I just absolutely love who have passed, and I don't ever want to let go of that love. And one of my mentors, Father Sonny, he was the coolest priest I ever knew. And I've known several, because I was supposed to be a Catholic priest. I was, you know, going to be groomed, and I was headed in that direction. And then I decided it was too constricting for me spiritually. And I remember what Father Sonny said is that grief is the price of love, and that we grieve as deeply as we have loved. But a life without love isn't much of a life at all.
True.
And that really, it is
Very true.
It is so true.
With these ghost hunters, my friend, they go to these places and they call out for spirits. Can they follow you home, the good or the bad? I mean, I've heard stories of ruined people's lives.
Yeah,
how's
I've
that
heard all that too. First off, I don't believe in evil spirits. And this is where I break with a lot of my colleagues. Because it gets back to, once we leave this body, the human ego gets left behind. That's what dies with the body. Because anytime you do something negative to another person, it's not spiritual, it's ego, edging God out. That's where it's all about me, 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 me. What people may be bringing home with them is residual energy echoes. In other words, let's say you go to a place where a heinous murder was committed, and you'll pick up on something. It's because it's in other words, that negative entity is no more a sentient spirit than your reflection in a mirror is you. And so there are certain areas where a horrific act occurred, and matter retains vibration and energy. Once again, quantum physics. And some people pick up on that, and they may absorb some of that energy, but it's not a spirit. You know, they're not haunted. Because I hear all these ridiculous things about, oh, I'm haunted, blah, 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 blah.
The scratch marks and all that, too. But
Yeah, a lot of people, I mean, I think that they, without meaning to, are bringing it down upon themselves. Now, the thing is, though, I like to maintain an open mind, and I've been on several paranormal investigations. So, you know, if I witnessed, you know, I've been to several places, oh, this is so evil, and I'm like, no, it isn't, you know, and I'm like there, and the spirits are like, you know, why is everybody afraid of us and all this? Because they're not hanging out there. It's either a residual energy echo, or they will come back. See, there's three schools of thought on hauntings. One is that, you know, they're stuck there, which is not the case, because, you know, once you leave the body, you know, you're a spirit, you know that you are.
Right.
Secondly, that they return to the location. Okay, all right, they'll come back and forth, but they're not going to be hanging out there. And let me ask you this. Once you're an electromagnetic soul, you're an EMS, would you like to hang out at a garbage dump, or would you prefer to be hanging out on the beaches of Maui?
Yeah,
everyone's going to go to Maui, right?
Right, cool.
All right, and then the third possibility is residual energy echo. And that's what a lot of these EMS, the EM scanners, the spirit box and all that, they're picking up on residual energy echoes, unless, like in the case of my friend Billy, his spirit spotted an opportunity to communicate to me through that device.
There was
yeah.
I'm sorry to cut you off.
This
This happened to me because of the type of show that I do. I visited a place in Pahrump, actually a cemetery, with an older friend of mine. And I actually spoke to this person to the grave. And we both got the same answer. We both heard what he had said back to me after I asked him a certain question, and would it be okay? And he said, just push the envelope and have fun. And the old guy next to me heard the same thing. I was in shock. I mean, I was just going, whoa. And yeah, pretty crazy.
Well, yeah, because that's a frequency beacon.
Yeah.
You guys went to a location. You were focusing on that particular individual. You sent out, think of a frequency beacon like you're sending a vibration along this vast spider web, and the spirit picked up on it, came to you, sent out an electromagnetic impulse, and both your brains picked it up.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's very cool, because if you both heard it, that's what's known as objective clairaudience. If it was subjective clairaudience, that would mean that you heard it, nobody else did. Subjective because one person heard it, but when more than one person hears an identical message, then it becomes objective. And it's the same thing if you both saw the same spirit at the same time. It would be objective clairvoyance, which is clear seeing.
And it's very odd. As we were leaving that cemetery, kind of got lost. Met up with a guy, and his whole life is another radio show. To tell you the truth, it's like he was setting me up for something. And yeah, unbelievable. I'll never forget that. I really. Mark, we're running about out of time, and I want you to give your email address again and your website address if you can. And go ahead.
Yeah, my website is Afterlife Frequency, all one word, afterlifefrequency.com. Just like my book, The Afterlife Frequency. And I do have 2 spirit communication events, online events this week, the 24th and the 25th of June. And you can find out about those by going to my website to the calendar of events. I invite everyone to sign up for my newsletter. You can find out about and purchase my books through the website. Also, you can schedule a private one-on-one reading with me as well. And you can find out about all of that on my website, afterlifefrequency.com. And every Thursday, I co-host a show called The Psychic in the Doc on the Transformation Network.
That's
and
cool.
My co-host is the amazing Dr. Pat. She's a world-renowned behavioral psychologist. And we have guests on, but oftentimes we take calls from listeners, and I'll do mini readings, and you'll get Dr. Pat's insights. And it's a very healing and empowering show. So I invite everyone to visit my site, afterlifefrequency.com.
That's great. And your books again, please.
My first book, Never Letting Go, is a guide on the journey through grief, Evidence of Eternity. And then my latest book is The Afterlife Frequency, the scientific proof of spiritual contact and how that awareness will change your life.
It's fantastic. Gosh. Well, it has been a great pleasure, my friend, talking to you. And I dearly thank you and for taking the time to be on the Glenn Larry Show. And we hope to have you back on again.
Thank you. I look forward to it, Glenn, and to all your listeners. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening. I'm Mark Anthony, and I know Glenn agrees with me. We all wish you a very blessed, peaceful, and health-filled week.
Gosh, thank you, Connie, my friend. Be well. And folks out there, get those books. Go to his website and do yourself a favor. Really unbelievable. Mark, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Wow, was that some show? And there's more to come. Also want to thank the Pioneer Saloon. I'm going down there, probably have a little short one myself. And I tried that Old Man Liver whiskey. I never did that before, but it was interesting. It was good. Yeah, very flavorful. Yeah, and I had a great hamburger down with my friends, and in fact, I had a breakfast today down there, and the place is haunted. So that's another thing. Sign up for their ghost tour. Fun stuff. I've done it myself. So, gosh, we got a lot of things going in my little town of Good Springs. Of course, we've got K-Ghost Radio, and we're all over the place. Gosh, I want to thank also. A shout goes out to a couple people, and I can't not say hello to them because we're so close. Sheldon Battery, thank you, buddy. Carpenter Tiles USA, thank you, and Ray's Honey, of course, you know who they are. And of course, Creekside Diner. When I was over in Pennsylvania, I'll tell you, I had the best food ever, and I love their food. I want to thank her. She's in Kennett Square. Yeah. So, and all the fire crew guys out there. Gosh, hold on here. Chief might be in Florida. How about that, huh? Well, it's about the time to almost say goodbye. And once again, play well, be well, and love your fellow man and help somebody out if you can. And I thank all those folks out there that have helped me sincerely. Thank you so much. And again, I am Glenn Larry, and we'll see you next Tuesday night. We'll have fun.